soil. But for decades, the industry's told us that soil is just a sterile medium designed to hold synthetic inputs. We were trapped in the guess and stress cycle, reacting to deficiencies instead of building systems.
The phrase when I was growing up was, we know more about space than we know about the earth under our feet. Well, now we're beginning to learn about the stuff under our feet, and it's becoming even more important as we discover Only one time in my life has something like this happened to me, and it was when I learned geometry. It fits so perfectly. It's so beautiful. It's a system all by itself,
And the whole thing is, and that's what's neat, is that we're in this huge transition now from this, chemical dependency and focusing on strictly chemicals to really biological stewardship. So, and you've been writing about gardening for decades. I think you said 50 years, coming up on this year. What was the specific light bulb moment that shifted your focus from traditional chemistry to kind of like that teaming with microbes philosophy, I guess you could say?
This guy walks into my office and he goes, I'm a truck driver and I drive from Anchorage down through Canada to Chicago. And I keep seeing this peat all over the place. And so I took some to Dr. Elaine Ingham, and she just about shat in her pants because it had the highest microbiology of any soil she had ever seen anywhere. Mm-hmm. What? Holy crow. Only one time in my life has something like this happened to me, and it was when I learned geometry. It fits so perfectly. It's so beautiful. It's a system all by itself. And once you get into it, it's just, and the rules and everything else. And it turns out, same thing happens with soil. There are all these systems and rules and things that we didn't know about. The phrase when I was growing up was, we know more about space than we know about the earth under our feet. Well, now we're beginning to learn about the stuff under our feet, and it's becoming even more important as we discover the dangers of plastic and microplastics in soil, in farming, the use of plastic in farming. I mean, people put down these plastic sheets, and you name it. It's unbelievable. What do you think happens when you put a plastic sheet down, and the sun comes out and cooks it? Well, you're getting microplastics into the soil, and it's going into your food in all probability. So it's very interesting and very important that we figure this out.
Yep. Or nutrient dense, right? You start looking at this regenerative, whatever you may call it. You're right. They're going to start looking for better food, right? That's exactly correct.
And we have to, because we know, for example, that these microplastics are getting into our brain. They're causing dementia. We've had an incredible increase in dementia over the past 10 years, and it probably has to do with these microplastics. So it's really pretty key stuff.
The evolution of the soil food web.
Sure.
Foundation, let us discuss the impact of teaming with microbes, okay? How has the industry's understanding of the rhizosphere changed since the book was first launched?
Well, I don't think people were thinking about microbes at all before the book. It wasn't the book that caused it, but I mean, it just was the era. We are a product of leftover munitions from World War II, and they had a lot of nitrogen in it, and so those are what were used. And I think what happened was people began to start thinking, gee, this doesn't make any sense. Why are we putting chemicals down on food we eat when we know we don't want to eat those chemicals? I mean, people really started thinking, and they're still thinking about it.
So more and more.
Yeah, well, we have USDA organic now. We have, all sorts of companies that sell products that are only organic. It turns out that Miracle-Gro is the largest purveyor of organic fertilizers and soils in the world. So, people are getting it. They are getting it.
Good thing. All right, let's talk about some modern challenges. You know, we've known about microbes for a long time now.
Right.
Yet, you know, guess and stress farming and gardening, it still does dominate the majority of the space. So why is the shift to biological systems taking so long in professional agriculture, would you say? Large scale professional
Yeah.
agriculture.
Large scale, there's so much dependency on the companies that sell you seeds, and are they Roundup ready, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they have these relationships, and they're not changing. We got to get the industry itself to change. It may take legislation. I mean, why are we poisoning ourselves? Why are we killing ourselves? It's so stupid. I mean, the fact that you have an organic section in the supermarket, it should all be organic. What you're saying is, yeah, go over there and buy those poisons. I mean, it's, you know, and it's with full knowledge. It's very bad. And then, of course, what these chemicals do to the soil and what rototilling does to the soil. So we have these gigantic columbines, you know, 16 of them in a row, making a V going down a field, you know, just destroying all of the structure in the soil. It blows away. We have, someone said, 60 years of soil left. 60 years.
It's over. It's over.
And then we're hydroponics. Ugh. Yuck.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Because and that makes, and it's really tough to grow in hydroponics, you know, especially, I mean, some people do it. To do it organically is really, really tough, you know, or build nutrient density in foods or certain things. That's right. That's right. And it's going to take a while, I think, too, for the whole shift to happen. It's happening at a faster pace, and we're seeing these larger farms starting to switch over. I think some of it, too, is the economics, right? Like when it comes down to it, and I agree 100%, there shouldn't be a conventional and organic side. It should all be, hey, we're taking care of the soil. We care about our food, the whole 9 yards, and we just go to the supermarket to buy. But what we're starting to see even in large scale is that it does come down a lot of the times to the cost, right? To turn over to a regenerative system, or even to get away from the conventional side to get, you know, into a regenerative side.
Right.
So a lot of these farms are really stuck.
But if they take a look at Dr. White from Rutgers and his stuff on rhizophagy, and I mean he's got some solutions, and they're working on actually. Let's take your lawn. You know, forget the big farm because I don't know enough about it, but they're working on a method where they're going to be able to infect dandelions and change the dandelions so that it will put out an exudate that gets rid of any dandelions around it. I mean, wow. You know,
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's some pretty phenomenal studying going on trying to get you know, plants to take care of themselves, which they do normally. We come, you know, they're in charge. We come along thinking, well, wait a minute. We know better than they know.
We have a better way of doing it, right? We have a better way of doing it.
A million years, and we are, yeah. So that's the problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, let's talk a little bit about fungi versus bacteria.
Right.
Let us take a deep dive into the importance of fungal to bacterial ratios and how land managers can identify if their underground employees are actually showing up for work.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the last. You can tell there's a product. In fact, I just talked to the owner of the company called microBIOMETER. That's the product. microBIOMETER, all one word. And this is a very interesting kit that enables you to determine fungal bacteria ratio, but it also lets you know, you know, what importance is the bacteria, how high is it? You get to a certain level, those bacteria are producing the fertilizer that you need. And so you get to a certain level of bacteria, you never have to fertilize again. So it's a very cool kit. It turns out that things that are in the ground for less than a year, they like bacterial dominated soil. It has to do with the pH more than anything else, I think. Things that are in the ground for more than a year, they like the fungal which makes sense. The fungal network takes a while to establish and get going.
Sure.
The bacteria is much quicker. And then there's some items that like 50-50, like your lawn.
Yeah.
So I always tell my readers, leave the grass clippings down,
Yep.
leave the leaves there. In the spring they'll all be gone. They'll all be decayed. There's a great amount of decay going on right now. It's 5 degrees below zero. Here, I'll show you. We got a lot of snow out there.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and look at it over there. And
Wow.
there is a layer right between the surface of the lawn and that snow. And there is more microbial activity going on in that little layer during the winter than there is all summer long. So it does phenomenal stuff. If you've left your leaves down, that's how they get decayed and put the goodies back into the soil when the soil thaws again, and it's the way to go.
Absolutely, and then it's the whole system starts over again.
Yes,
and that's
yeah.
what's
So
funny is people always ask me about that too in lawns, right? Because you look at it like trees, they're more fungal dominant, right? You even look at that, and when you say it's a 50-50 split,
right.
Well, what happens when you have trees planted in lawns, right?
Yeah,
like everybody always asks that, and it's like, well, that's a great question, especially if you're using bacterial inoculants on your soil.
Well, and the answer is then you take leaves. And you put them around the drip line of the tree, maybe even further out, actually, and they'll provide the proper microbial mix. Again, the plant is the one that determines what that mix is. If we leave it alone, if we come in with our own stuff, then it really screws it up.
Absolutely, and so that's why also, with that being said, too, right? That's why a tree can grow in a bacterial dominant, you say like a grass or something like that, and still have mycorrhizal fungi connected throughout the whole root, all the roots of the tree itself.
Right. I think Dr. Lane came to the conclusion that you need at least 5% fungal for anything, whether it's bacterially dominated or not. The other thing is when it comes to lawns, I always tell people, look, don't do what that nasty Scottish guy tells you to do every spring. Put on you need to fertilize, right? Greenest lawn, blah, blah. That's bullshit. Just let water hit the lawn, let it green up, and then determine whether you need to do anything for it. And if you need to do something for it, you make it organic, not chemical. It's just as simple as that. And the same thing with your garden. If you're a committed gardener, you put your gardens to bed in the fall, and you make sure that there's ample organic material, organic fertilizers, so that stuff has an opportunity to work underneath that snow all winter long, and then by come spring, you got a good fertile place to plant in.
Absolutely, and it's ready to rock and roll.
That's
and that's what I always tell people too. If you're going to purchase something, and we talk about it on large scale, so we work in gardens and with homeowners, and we work on large scale both. So we work both ways. But I don't care if you're a homeowner or if you have 1,000 acres or 10,000 acres. If you're going to buy something to put into your soil, just buy something that's an investment versus just a one-time expense, right? Like that's what that's the whole thing I look at. Like make your soil better. And there's things out there that can do that, and only buy it if you need it.
Right.
Don't buy it because you just want to put something down, right?
Yeah. I mean, I put humic acid in sometimes. Yeah, it depends. You take a look at what's going on and see whether everything's working.
Well, let's talk about the new frontier, rhizophagy. And endophytes, teaming with bacteria. We're going to transition into, I guess you could say, your latest work, right? Teaming with bacteria. Jeff, discuss the rhizophagy cycle with us, if you would. The process where plants literally can eat bacteria, strip them of their nutrients, and then spit them back out to forage for some more.
Right. And again, this is Dr. James White. He gets all the credit for this. If you have not had an opportunity to watch one of his lectures, you are missing out because he's great.
Well, and I'll tell you what, you know what? He's going to be on coming up here in just an episode or so. So it's going to be perfect. And this is exactly, that's why I'm excited about it. I want you to introduce it, and then we'll dive deeper and deeper into it.
Yeah, well, tell him I say hello. That's for sure. I mean, he really changed my life as much as Dr. Elaine did. I mean, so there's sort of three phases of the soil food web evolution. The first is the Dr. Elaine. I call that the poop loop.
Sure.
You know, the plant puts out exudates, attracts nematodes and bacteria and fungi, and blah, 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 and they poop and feed the plant. Then we have the fungal loop, which is the mycorrhizal. We knew about mycorrhizal fungi. We've known about mycorrhizal fungi actually since the 1890s, but not with any great specificity. And that has changed. There's 360 different mycorrhizal fungi. We can produce, I think, something like 8 to 10 of them. Fortunately, and I always get in trouble when I say this, those 8 and 10, they like to sleep around, or they can sleep around with different plants. So, it isn't oak tree, one kind of mycorrhizal fungi, birch tree, another kind. So they'll spread around, and it's what makes your plants grow. It's what creates soil structure, and it's what enables these bacteria to thrive. So what happens is they are in the soil. There's a root there. They smell something like popcorn. They move into the root, but they don't go all the way through the root. So I like to compare it to or use as an analogy, tofu, a tofu package. So you've got the white plastic on the outside. The bacteria go through that white plastic. That's the cell membrane. And then they get into this endoplasmic space. There's this little watery space. And then if you go further, you actually hit the cell itself, and you can enter the cell where all the organelles and everything are. In rhizophagy, the bacteria go into that water space around the tofu. And because there's a circulation going on inside the cell, it tends to circulate there as well. Now, these bacteria are in there. They are, when they go in, the plant goes, holy shit, I don't want these guys in me. And so the plant sprays them with a protectorant, which has the result of stripping off the cell wall of these bacteria. And they become what's known as L-form, the letter, form bacteria. I always wondered, where did that come from? These are wall-less bacteria. And I finally one day discovered the L stands for London, because it was at some university there, and they just called them L form. So
interesting.
Yeah. So they're in there. They go in that little space, and they're producing ethylene, because that's what they do. Ethylene causes cell walls and things to stretch. So you get a certain amount of stretching, but they also multiply. Every 20 minutes, they double. Well, all of a sudden, that little endoplasmic space becomes quite full with bacteria that are producing ethylene. Finally, they get so thick that they back up against the cell wall, and they literally push the cell wall out and form a root hair. It's fascinating.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. I mean, we always thought, root hairs were there for nutrient purposes. No, they're there so that these wall-less L-form bacteria can jet themselves back out into the soil, where over the next 2 or 3 days, they regrow their cell wall, and then they end up going back into the bacteria. Going back into the cell and repeating, or the root, and repeating the system. It's really quite something.
Doing the same exact thing.
Yeah, the reason why the roots take in nutrients is because as the little hair is forming, the tip of it is, it's like the bricks are being put in, but they're not solid yet. And so that becomes a really important, that's where exudates occur and things happen. And it's very interesting stuff. Dr.
No,
James White.
absolutely.
Look up Dr. James White. He is fabulous. As I say, every bit a guru as Dr. Eileen is.
Let's talk a little bit about the systemic defense, I guess. So how do these internal microbes or the endophytes kind of act as the plant's primary immune system then when they're within that plant?
God, I gotta see if I can remember that. It's been a while. Well, they go in there, they take out other bacteria. Yeah, they're there protecting the plant. You don't come in here. I'm in here. And why do they go in the first place? Probably because there's too much competition outside the root. And so if they get inside the root, there's less competition for nutrients and there's less competition for living space, which is important because, again, they multiply so much.
Yeah, and especially if they're beneficials, right? Yeah. They'll outcompete, and then endophytes, they get inside the plant, giving it plant protection from the inside of the plant out.
And they do that in two ways. One is systemically, they produce things to protect the plant, and the other is abiotic. When a bacteria moves into a plant, the plant says, geez, I'm under attack. I better strengthen myself. And so the plant strengthens itself. And that's very important for the health of the plant.
Yep. And then that's when we get into quorum sensing and those types of fun things, right?
Right. The bacteria. Bacteria.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk now a little bit about the beyond organic concept. So discuss why simply being organic isn't necessarily enough if the biological delivery system isn't functioning. So how do we move toward a truly regenerative system-based approach?
Well, I think the key thing is you got to have the microbes. You just have to have them, and so you've got to use things that microbes live in. Compost, key. Mulches, key. And you can use mulches that are bacterially dominated or attract bacteria, and mulches that attract fungi, green, brown, all that kind of stuff. And but compost is so important, and we need to stop getting rid of, if it's produced on your property, regenerative, it should be used on your property. And when leaves and twigs and stuff drop, keep it. Don't put it in the landfill. It's just incredible how many people, for example, pick up their clippings when they mow the lawn. Well, what do you think feeds the lawn? If you take away, there's the law of return. What falls from a plant is supposed to fall from that plant because it decays and feeds the plant and keeps the cycle going. If you take the clippings away, the cycle's broken.
Yep.
Then you begin to have problems with your lawn. And when you start having problems with your lawn, because of the society we live in, you tend to listen to the Miracle Grows of the world and not the Jeff Lowenfelses of the world.
Yeah, no, and
I'm better than them.
It is, you know what, though, at the end of the day, it is true, right?
Yeah,
and then you start having things, the system breaks. And as the system breaks, then that's when you head to the nursery or wherever you go and buy more and more inputs that never fix the problem. Yep. Right? It never fixes the problem. So
you can hide it a little bit, but you're not fixing it. So
absolutely. You have to have that biological engine, the system, right?
Yeah.
To cycle it, the gut of the soil.
Right. And the other reason why you need to understand it is because it gives you an appreciation of your garden or your farm that you never had. When you figure out these little plants are in there working their asses off for you, man, oh man, who knew that?
I know.
We were using sterile soil. When I moved up here, one of the things I brought with me was my father's soil sterilizer. I made the mistake of doing it in the microwave. Don't ever try that.
Sure.
stink up your house and your microwave for the rest of time. But yeah, so I mean, sterile soil was key, really key. Hard to believe. My father, my grandfather lived on a 12-acre farm in White Plains, New York, and he would put a sign up every spring, and he would say tomato plants for sale. He grew tomato plants just for fun. and he would sell 10,000 tomato plants. Well, I can only imagine what would have, if he'd been able to tell them, and you need to use this kind of soil on those, but we didn't know. We didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Now we do. No excuse anymore. Yeah.
How does knowing the biological life in your soil change the way you manage a landscape or a farm?
Right. Right. And your practices have to protect them, not kill them.
Gotcha. Absolutely. And we sell the microBIOMETER obviously a lot to home gardeners. So I know exactly what you're talking about. We do sell some to larger commercial operations. There are some people that still purchase them for larger scale stuff. Yeah. But, you know, a lot of people are starting to look into DNA sequencing now, even of their soils to really, and it's a snapshot. Don't get me wrong, soil ecology changes. Probably the minute after you take that soil sample, it's already changed, right? Like that's the reality.
Yes, yes.
But the DNA sequencing side of soil is starting to become very interesting, you know? So we'll see where that leads.
Yeah, well, if you could test more than once, you can do a test and then you can do your practices, and then you can do a test to see if your practices are helping or whether they're hurting. That's why I like that microbiometer. You get a number like 220 at the end of the season. If the number is 120, you've done something wrong. If it's 520, absolutely, you're in great shape. And so being able to test before and after makes sense. One test alone really doesn't help. So,
yes,
yeah, and you might want to think about it, depending on how big your garden or farm is. You know, you might want to think about mixing samples into the test, and or you know whether you want to do one sample here and one sample there, etc. So you have to make a decision.
So that's why that testing is important. Let's scale the science now, Jeff. You often talk to and work with home gardeners, but these same principles do apply to thousands of acres of cropland, which we've been discussing kind of throughout this whole podcast. So how do we take the teaming with philosophy and apply it to a large scale, say, turf management, municipal parks, commercial agriculture type of landscape?
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's take municipalities. God, I'm on the verge of going to our municipal assembly saying it's time to ban some stuff. You know what? Roundup? Nobody. Only commercial people can use Roundup.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that we were banning it, and all of a sudden the White House decided no, we don't want to be responsible. We don't want to rely on other people's pesticides. We got to keep this one here. Good. You get cancer. I don't want to get it. It's really a bad problem. So, it's just we got to just do education. Yes. And you know, if a farmer is applying this stuff, the farmer is the one that's going to get hit first. I cannot tell you how many people I know, 5 actually, you know, who've got the Parkinson's disease. And they didn't get it. They didn't get it from their drinking water. They got it from the chemicals that they were using. You know, it's just terrible. It's terrible.
Sure. And so, but to be able to take those principles, you're going to be able to take that teaming with philosophy, though, that you have in all of these books. It doesn't matter because it, like I said, kind of at the first, it's all soil, right?
Right. And the plant's a plant.
Yeah. So
they all operate the same way.
That's right. It doesn't matter how many you have, if it's a square foot garden or if it's 10,000 of those, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
At the end of the day, it all works. What is the one practice every land steward should start tomorrow to stop harming their soil biology, Jeff?
They need to read Teaming with Microbes. Simple as that. You got to understand the system. Once you appreciate how plants operate, you won't interfere with them because you understand they may not be running around. They don't have legs, but boy, are they smart.
Very, very, very smart. And not only very smart, but very resilient if you just leave them go, right?
Right. Exactly.
They know what they need, you know, as long as everything's there in the soil and you have the proper life there.
Yeah.
That's right. You know, and for me, the way I look at it is that's our whole thing. It's the biological, what we like to say, biological beyond organic methodology of the way we look at the soil. And that's exactly right. It's the soil food web. It's building structure. It's feeding, making sure the life's there, making sure it has food for the life, you know, all those things. And then you have healthy soil. So, but no, we just want to thank you definitely to all of our audience. Definitely, anybody that is watching this, if you would definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, share it out. We want to get this stuff out across the world like Jeff's already doing with his books, written in multiple languages. So if you would, please just share this as much as you can. And, give us great reviews on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're on all those. So if you would, please just take a look at this, share it out. And then not only that, but just, again, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Lord of the Roots.
Well, one last thing. Don't miss Dr. White. Dr. White is phenomenal. And you got to make sure you listen to his podcast, period.
Perfect. Well, thank you much. We appreciate you. We feel that your podcast was great as well.
Thank you very much. Sure. Pleasure.